combining these instruments into inputs based on their baseline decibel output. Now, although they're different pitches, they're basically the same decibel. The ride and the hi-hat, same situation. The toms, the rack toms and the floor toms, also same situation. Now, the bass drum has 2 mics on it already, and the snare drum has 2 mics on it already. So these right here should be independent of one another. We don't want to mix them. They're not. They're 2 different families of instrument. So, that being said, what I'm going to do is, for my initial line inputs, what I'm going to do is take cymbals 1, this mic, 2, and 3, and they'll all come together in a T, and then one line from all 3 of these will run into the sapphire. And then I'll balance that line, playing them so that it's not clipping. And those 3, what I've done here is drawn a schematic of a diagram of what it is I'm going to be doing as a personal guide tool. So I have them all written out here: crash, hi-hat, ride, toms, snare drum one, bass drum the other, and I have them connected as they'll be connected and which channel I'm going to run them to. It's really important to keep track of what's going into your system and having it in your playbook, so to speak, of how it is that you're configuring your equipment, given what your assemblage is and what your needs are. So that's what I'm going to be working on right now, is reconfiguring these wires and plugging them into the system. And then we'll back up and start doing what I was doing previously. Remember, we ran into the problem of this tom here and this hi-hat both being on the same line input in. And since their decibel levels are different, that led into the discussion of why it's necessary to bus or combine initial line inputs into a family of instruments when you're using digital input. Now or in this situation, there's a lot of ways to do this with even components that this component. However, the way I'm doing it is, I am combining the line inputs themselves using couplers and then running single lines in. So that's exactly how I'm doing it. And then we'll start over, as mentioned, from where we were previously, because our problem should be solved with the decibel levels. And then we should be able to tweak each channel of each family of instrument going into the initial line input, ensuring that all of our levels of all of our instruments are balanced well, and that they are going to go into the DAW once we assign those channels to tracks. They're going to go into the DAW that way, and that way we would be able to control them. What's interesting about the digital recording is this. Digital recording is, I wrote a little white paper thing about it somewhere recently. Digital recording is a recording that is easy to deconstruct because it's a program. It's made with a bunch of little blocks, and it's unlike the analog recording in a way that if we have a family of instruments together and they're combined, they're flat, like an image is flat, so to speak, in Photoshop, if you're familiar with that program, and how imaging editing works these days. They're all flattened together. We pipe them through the system. We record them onto one track. So that's kind of like there's one level in Photoshop with all these three things smashed together on it, on one track. Digitally, now, we can go into interfaces, much like selecting a color and delete or cutting out, and we can find these three instruments based not on their decibel level now, but on their pitch level. Because all three of them in that one track will be like three different colors, so to speak, that are flattened together in a Photoshop file, an image file. So when you look at these tracks through what we'll get into later on in the digital recording aspect of this, you'll be able to see the different color patterns that each one of these display on that track. And we'll be able to select them, cut them out, and put them on their own separate track or separate layer. Now we have more control over each one of these individual instruments, even though when we recorded them initially, they were on one track. Now that's really cool.